Without further ado, I'd like to introduce John Chadwick, who works at Drive 509. He is a current CDL holder, CDL instructor, and um, enrollment specialist or recruiter to help fill Drive 509's seats with students. And he's really does an amazing job. He has tons of past experience, and today we're just going to do have him share what he does, some of his processes, and maybe give you guys some ideas to help you further boost enrollments and grow your program. So without further ado, I'll mute myself. Feel free to ask questions as we go, and I'll let John take it away.
All right. Good morning. Good morning. Well, a little background on me. I've had a CDL for 15 years, but before that, I ran grocery stores for 30 years. I was store manager for Safeway. I ran supercenters for Walmart. I owned my own grocery store, and so I was kind of in sales for 30 years before, because I made money by selling groceries and promoting wine and organics. And as the boss, as the leader, I was always selling my ideas and my vision for the store, the company. So, and then I sold everything and I went traveling around the country with my family in a fifth wheel. And I was 57 feet long truck and trailer and 13 feet too high and way over my skis. So I got a CDL, and that's how my CDL journey started. And then I went to work for a third largest LTL carrier in the country, and I became a driver trainer, a CDL trainer in the process of those 13 years. And then when I got on January 1st, 2025, I came here to Drive 509. I actually came out of retirement to work here. And I came on as a recruiter, but I'm also a CDL instructor, and I think that helps take some of the sales pressure off when I introduce myself as a CDL instructor or recruiting specialist or enrollment specialist. That kind of, I think people have a natural defense when they think they're being sold. So we're gonna kind of go into that with stories and using stories to connect with people, but using stories to make money. At the end of the day, what does a CDL recruiter really do? We put butts in seats, right? To make money. But hopefully we're doing a little more than that. We're helping them see how our product, training a CDL, can help them realize their goals. And we need to become a trusted advisor, not a salesman. And so we'll kind of go through that today, how to handle objections, funding, referrals, that kind of thing, and kind of the process that I've done. But I want to say one thing, that I read books now, ever since I started this job to get into sales more thoroughly. I'm always reading a sales book. I'm always listening to an audio book on storytelling for sales, closing the sale, and the power of stories, because and we'll get into it a little further, but facts tell, right? But stories sell, and stories create emotion. And we'll go into that, how to prospect, present, and close. And when we're not doing that, we're not doing our job. We need to be prospecting, we need to be presenting, and we need to be closing the sale. But it's not just about sales. It's about the story and helping our students, our potential leads, see how we have a solution to help them be successful, how to reach their goal. So people don't really care how much you know. They care how much you care, is a good way to put that. And we are guides. Think of it this way. In Star Wars, Luke is the hero, going to defeat the evil empire, and Obi-Wan Kenobi is just his trusted advisor, his guide to help him to victory. Dumbledore with Harry Potter Dumbledore's the guide. Harry Potter's the hero. And we are that trusted advisor, and the student, the lead, they're the hero. Our job is to help them get to that end point, that victory, whatever it is they're looking to achieve with the CDL. And so we need to build trust and show them a better career path. So when I meet someone for the first time or they call me, I always begin with the end in mind. Why'd they call me? They want a CDL. Okay. Why? Why do you want a CDL? What do you want to do with it? A lot of times people don't know what they want a CDL because they see all the job openings, they see the pay. Maybe they read the paper, they understand that there's a huge demand, there's a shortage. According to the American Trucking Association right now, we're going to be about 174,000 drivers short nationwide by the end of the year. And I don't know that we really need to go into what led up to that, but if you're getting a CDL right now, it's a great time to get one. I mean, I have companies blowing up our phone, but a lot of students, they want a CDL because they want to make more money. They need to pay their bills. They need to support their family. They're looking for a better financial future, and a CDL can do that. I've done it for 15 years. Once I made a lot of money, to be honest with you, in grocery. More money, honestly, than I did trucking. But once I got out of trucking, I never went back. I do love it. And I think when I talk to people, they sense that. And I was able to create a very good life with trucking and build a second retirement in just 13 years. So I think we need to, if you have your own story to share, that's great. But at some point you want to share that to connect. But the reality is you need to find out what is their story, what is their obstacle, what are they trying to achieve with the CDL. Okay, so as I've been reading more and more and practicing every day, I mean, I have a cool job. I love my job, and I get to practice every day. I get to see what works, what doesn't work. But what I've really learned is that there are three things that I need to be doing. I need to be getting butts in seats. I need to be prospecting, looking for new leads, answering phone calls, reaching out to businesses. Sometimes a business calls me and they need a driver. I go visit them. I find out what it is they need. And then sometimes they decide after we meet, hey, let's send our employee there for training. And we go through that. I present. When people call, I'm presenting verbally. I'm presenting the school, what we do, how a CDL can reach their goals. And then I'm trying to close the sale. Now, not immediately. Some people, they're ready to move right now. Other people, maybe we need to build a relationship. Maybe we need to interact 2 or 3 times. And then I will tell you, there's the Pareto principle. That means it's the 80-20. 20% of your people that you deal with are going to account for 80% of your sales. The 80% of people you deal with are only going to account for 20%. So we're always looking when we're presenting and trying to figure out what they want. I'm looking to see if are they in the top 20 or are they in the bottom 80, right? Because at the end of the day, I want to spend my time as much as possible with that top 20, and I want to be looking for that top 20, whether it's visiting a company, a job fair. They call in, they're referred by somebody. And then the first thing I try to do is give them a tour of the facility or try to get them in the door. Don't want to overwhelm them with too much emotion, too much information. I want to get to know them, hear their story, find out what their challenges are, show them tell them about, show them on our job board, show them what the job options out there, what are the pay ranges that are out there, and how getting a CDL and coming to our school is going to solve that problem that they need, how they can be victorious and, if you will, and achieve their goals of financial freedom. And I tell people this all the time: your CDL is your job security. No job lasts forever. No company lasts forever. Things can change in a moment. But if you have a CDL, and you get some experience and you get a good driving record and you protect that CDL. You got job security. If you got a CDL and you're not working right now, it's because you don't want to. So then I close the sale, and I decide right then and there, when do they want to start? I ask those questions. When you're thinking about starting, we start looking at funding, right? Options. And do they have the ability to even train? Do we have a pathway to funding at all? Because if they don't have a pathway to funding and I can't find them a funding source, then I'm kind of wasting my time, if you will. I may put them in my bottom 80. I may follow up with them in 2 or 3 months just to check in. Maybe things have changed. But are they a qualified buyer? Are they able to pay for the training in one way, shape, or form? And I try to help find solutions for that. But some people, I can tell they're ready to go. They come in, they're ready to go. They want to start. So I try to get them registered. If I can get them in for the tour, or if the phone call goes well and I can tell they're ready to go, I'll say, hey, let's start Monday. Let's get registered. Let's get a med card. Get their butt in the seat while they're excited. And then we'll figure out how to help them get their permit that first week of training. Well, worst case scenario, I'll get a DOT drug test first day of class. When they're excited, get their butt in the seat, because once they're in the seat, it's easier to keep them there. It's easier to help them. And you want to create enthusiasm. So you gotta, if you feel that they're ready to train, I jump. But sometimes other people, they might need a little more time, but there's a limit to how much follow-up I'm going to do after I've given them enough information. All right, what's next? So like I said, know what they want from a CDL. If you're trying to say, okay, well, based on this conversation, maybe the best, this happens once in a while where I look at their work history, and maybe the best chance I have at getting them a job is over the road, because maybe, they don't, their work history maybe is a little checkered or whatever, not very consistent. But they want to work local. They have a family. They want to be home every night. So if I start pushing over the road, I'm pushing them away. So I try to go through local options with them. I have a story of a regional driver right now. He's that I share. And right now, a year ago I met him, and he had 2 kids, one with his wife, one with his ex-wife. He had a baby in the oven, and they were living in a duplex, and he was broke. And fast forward a year, and we worked together. I helped him get 4 jobs over the last year, and now he's kind of landed in a regional job where he goes out for 2 weeks. He's home for a week. He goes out for 2 weeks. He's home for a week. He just came into the school to show off his truck and talk to me yesterday. Actually, he had his best week ever. He made $7,500 in a week. So that's a regional driving story that I share with people, because he now is averaging. He started averaging 3,000 to 4,000 a week when he started. So when he's home for a week, he makes no money, but when he's out, he's making that. He's getting percent of load. He now we're moved out of a duplex. They have a house. They have a new baby on the way. His wife wanted an SUV with a 3rd row seat. And he stayed out for 4 weeks because he wanted to pay cash and no car payments. So all his bills are paid off. He's on track this year to make 125 and above. Totally changed his life. So that's a story I tell people about a regional driving job and what is possible. Local driving, I talk to them about my own story. But, stories don't have to be yours. They can be another student's. A student that has graduated and has come back, and you followed up and you've helped them be successful. I have another one where I helped him get a local job, and it took 6 months of follow up to get him funding, get him into training, and then he tried to sabotage his success in training, and then I had to play the dad card, get him back on track, helped him get a job. He got into dump trucking, prevailing wage. He was broke, living in a trailer with a girlfriend, a new baby, and had another kid living in a pretty old trailer. And now he's got land, he's building a house, and all that. Here we are a year and a half later, and it's changed his life. So those are great stories. And for me, as a in this job, that's really what it's about for me. When I can help someone get funding, get enrolled, help them get a job and change their life, that really changes everything. So explain options to them very clearly. What is the difference between local, regional, over the road? What can they do with the CDL? And because a lot of them don't know, right? They don't know what the pay looks like. They don't know what next steps look like. They don't know about additional endorsements. When people do ask me about the difference between Class A and B, and then they want to go into endorsements. And when I'm first talking to them, I say, let's talk about additional endorsements later. We can briefly touch on it. I don't want to overload them with information. I don't want to overwhelm them. Let's focus on Class A. Let's focus on our permit, our med card. Let's get started, and then let's talk about getting additional endorsements towards the end of your training or in the middle of it. We could talk about after how to do that. Some people get it before with their permit. Just depends on the individual. I do tailor the conversation based on the individual. Some people want to get the permit and the endorsements before they even start, and they're pretty gung-ho. So they've already started studying maybe for their permit. So I do talk to them about Class A and B, but what I do tell them with a Class A, if there's a great B job, schedule's right, pays decent, benefits are good, and you want to do it, you can go back and forth. So I do lean heavy on A's. So I walk people through that, and most people I am able to direct them more to an A, because A's obviously is more in demand, makes more money. And with an A, you can do A or B. So I do go over that. I talk about manual versus automatic. Here at Drive 509, we really push manual training because we don't want restrictions on jobs, on licenses, because we don't want, limit job options or pay. But you know what? Some people, automatic is the right call. And a lot of employers, when they send their employees here for training, they want them to do automatic. And we do that on a case-by-case basis, but the bulk of the people here, we're trying to do manual. And I want to make sure they understand the difference and what that means. And if a student decides, hey, I really want to do auto, well, at least they understand what that restriction means. And we go through, timelines of training. What does that look like? Full-time, part-time, nights, schedule accommodations, and what does that look like? And how can some people come here and they need to do it nights, part-time, and I need to do some creative scheduling to make that happen, to make their dreams and their ability, because maybe they need to work and train to be able to afford it. But again, this is kind of a process where when I first meet them, I'm not drowning them with all this. I'm trying to give them the bare minimum, get them excited, tell them some stories, figure out what they want, and how they can achieve it. And then we kind of go into more detailed information, probably after they start. It's a case by case person, right? But you can drown someone really fast with too much information. So I really would stress that less is more sometimes when that first interaction. And I struggle with this. I'm not gonna lie to you. Sometimes I struggle with this. I like to give lots of information. And what I will tell you is that emotions, stories drive sales. Facts help them justify sales, the purchase, the decision. Too much information will drown them at first, though. And so there's a balance. Like I said before, we will, according to the American Trucking Association, we'll be 174,000 drivers short by the end of 2026. So that's a huge lead, right? I lead with that all the time. I make sure I tell people, man, when I got my CDL in 2011-12, we were 300,000 drivers short projected. This is the second CDL gold rush, in my opinion, right now. And perfect storm of events led up to both incidents. But I lead with that. But I start with questions. I ask them about them. Are they married? Do they have kids? What do they want to do? So questions, get them talking, get them answering questions, find out what are our challenges. And as I said, it's not about sales, right? It's about becoming a trusted advisor. And when you do that, you will make the sale. Now, not every time, right? Because some people are just looking. Some people want to do it, but they're afraid to change. Some people want to do it, but they can't afford it. Um, maybe we can't find them a pathway for funding. But I get really creative to try to do that. But I'm trying to become their Obi-Wan, their Dumbledore. They're the hero of the story. I'm just trying to help them figure out how we get them there. And when you ask questions, you get people talking, they start to trust you, right? I share my own personal story. Now I'm fortunate. I have good trucking stories, but I've been in the last, I don't know, 3 months, I've been transitioning to sharing my students' success stories instead of mine, because so people can see that. But you know what? The other thing I do want to say that people want to hear success stories, but they also want to hear about real struggle. So make sure you share your struggles with them. And as I said earlier in the slideshows, facts matter, stories sell. But stories create emotion. Emotions drive sales. Facts justify the purchase. So, what is possible with a CDL? How much can they possibly make? I have a student that just made $7,500 in a week. I have a student up in Alaska right now making $1,000 a day. I have other students that are doing local P&D, local LTL, and they're home every night, full benefits, retirement. They're averaging somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 a week. And so when I tell people that, at least in this market, some of them blows them away because they've never even made anything close to that. And I personally, when I did LTL, I made over 2,000 a week, and I was home every night with holidays off. So what do they? And maybe they want to pay off their debt. They want to support their family. And over 50% of people that walk in to that call or walk in here, they're really just trying to figure out how to support their family with rising costs. They're in a dead-end career and they want a better future, and they keep seeing the jobs. There's all these jobs out there. I'm in Indeed every morning. I go into Indeed, I've got hundreds of jobs in the area, and I share them with people as they come in and get them in Indeed and show them. And I have a job board, a digital job board in the lobby. I update that, so I'm on top of what's out there, so I can try to pair the person with the job. I show them maybe, hey, research this company, look at this job, this is where this pays. So when you start showing them facts and success stories and struggles and how the CDL helped them overcome, that helps them realize, hey, I can buy a home. I can buy my wife an SUV and pay cash with no car payment.
All right, guys, before we jump into the next slide, I just wanted to give anyone an opportunity to ask questions in the chat. Think about maybe some struggles you've had or opposition to coming to school or getting training. We'd love to hear your experiences, and maybe John can lend some insight or help with what to do in the future. So be thinking about that. I'll let John take it back over here.
All right, he muted me. There we go. Now I'm unmuted. Okay, so for me, there's a workflow that I do. Now, there's a bunch of different ways to do a workflow. You can create your own. I usually start with a first call. If I get them, great. If not, I leave them voicemail. I may, at that time, send them a template, an email template that I have that said, hey, reached out to you, left you a voicemail. We use CDL Power Suite here, so I get incoming leads. They go on our website requesting information, so I reach out to them. And so I'll send them an email that says, hey, would love to hear from you. Here's our hours. Here's my name, and CDL instructor, enrollment specialist, which is a fancy way to say I'm a recruiter with the CDL, right? But because people are, think about it, people are bombarded with thousands of messages every day to buy. And we want to, they put up resistance. So we want to calm that at bay. We're not trying to sell you here. We're trying to guide you. We're trying to see if this is a good fit for you. If I don't, so then I do that. I send them, a first call, voicemail, email. I wait, and I wait about a week. If I don't hear from them, I might send them a text, or another attempt to another follow-up call. And then I will do basically what I call a third follow-up. It could be voicemail, phone call, email. And now if I still haven't connected with them, maybe I send a final text, and then every Friday I delete or archive any lead that didn't call back. We never got connected. Maybe they went on, they were just fishing for information. Sometimes they respond back, and sometimes they don't, right? But that's kind of my process, because at the end of the day, I'm either going to make a connection. We're going to go through, I'm going to do follow-up. Let's say that I get them on the first call, we talk. Well, then I'm going to maybe do a follow-up call in 2 weeks. Okay. If I still haven't heard from them, maybe I do a third follow-up in 3 or 4 weeks, because, I call them, we email back and forth, whatever it is. And then at some point in there, I'm trying to get them in the, I try to get them to come in for a tour, so I can show them our equipment, show them our job board, meet them face to face, but I'm trying to close that sale, or I'm moving on. I'm going to archive that lead. I'm going to put it in my, hey, we're interested, but we're not ready to pull the trigger. I have different tabs. But I will say that I try not to overly follow up. So, I try to reach out. I might follow up in a week. If we make a connection, maybe depending on the conversation, maybe I do a follow-up in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, just depending on when they're wanting to start, what they've communicated. And again, if I can get them in for the tour, I mean, the close rate when I get them in for the tour is probably like, I'd say 50 to 70% close rate. I still lose a few of them. One thing that happens when I tell people a story, I make sure that, hey, you're going to spend time and money here. Put boots on the ground. Come see me. Usually when I get them here, if they've got choices on CDL schools, right? If I do it right, they've seen us, they've seen our equipment, how many instructors we have, how much equipment we have. We talk to them about jobs. We see the resources we have. They usually come back to us when they're ready. And I've had leads, to be honest with you, that have taken me 6 months to a year to get in. I just had one that it was almost a year. He was still interested. He was trying to come up with the money. He was saved. He was committed. He finally started. Took a year. The reason I didn't archive him, I didn't, stop communicating with him, because he expressed interest every time I called. And he was serious about it. He came in and saw me 3 different times. And we finally found a pathway for funding and for him, and timing. He had to pay off some debt so he could do the training, and we're still in communication now. So, like the slide says, don't rely on a memory. Have a process that works for you, and but this is kind of my process, right? And I do have a tab in my CDL Power Suite that it's a black tab. It basically, it's my bottom 80%. Hey, I'm interested, but you know what? I've given them all the information. I'm not spending any more time on that lead unless they make an effort. And if they call back and they make an effort, then I'll move them into a tab. That is something I'm doing right now. Okay, so objections are part of recruiting. Okay, so people come in, they're afraid of change. They're worried about scheduling. They're worried about funding. How do I pay for this? They're worried about the timing. My job is to find them solutions, to all their objections. We have people that come in from out of town. So I had one here that was supposed to start on the 1st. He did not. He called me on a Friday and said, yeah, I can't start. I don't have a place to stay. Well, that was the first time he came to me. So I gave him about 3 solutions. He's starting this Monday, but I had to find him lodging, and I had to walk him through it, and I had to help him find some lodging. I gave him some ideas, and in the end, he ended up finding lodging on his own. But I'm the one who started the process and gave him some tools and options. People are, So objections are not rejection. They're just, obviously your job is to find solutions and overcome objections. And funding is my biggest one. I'll be honest. That's the biggest one. I went out and I found some community funders. I just called one for a student that registered. This scholarship fund helps pay for trade training. And I just found a new funder last night just by a phone call. And we talked, and I spent about 30 minutes with her on the phone. And yes, not a student, not a lead, but a funding lead, right? And so I've been finding new funding leads, but to help overcome that objection. And people have a concern about scheduling and home time. So we walk through all those options, right? So funding, again, is the biggest barrier. Scheduling, I want to be home every night. And I agree with that. If you got a wife, you got a kids, you need to be home every night. If you're single and you want to live out of a truck, I have a student that graduated a year ago. He really wanted to go over the road. He doesn't even have an apartment. He lives out of his truck. And when he does come back to the terminal every 2-3 months, his car is here at the terminal. He unhooks the battery. When he gets back, he hooks the battery up so it doesn't drain out. He goes, rents a hotel for 2 or 3 days, and then he's back out on the road. So we found ways to make things work for him. And on him, I found kind of an employer-sponsored training situation. And another student, I helped him find tuition reimbursement. So he found a way to come up with the money, but we targeted an employer that offers tuition reimbursement over a period of time, and that to help him pay that back. So, and then the biggest one, schedule accommodations. We do work with schedules, trying to be very creative to get a butt in a seat. And sometimes I've done some things where our 4-week program, I've done it scattered out by certain days here and here, and it took 5-6 weeks to get that 160 hours. And it wasn't full time all 6 weeks. It was 3 days here. It was the next week. It was 4 days. It was 3 days. It was 2 days. And they understood that if they, at the end of the 160 hours, at least in Washington State, that's the requirement. But I was able to make that work. And so, and he actually called me the other day, and he's coming back for hazmat training and endorsement training, because in the state of Washington, you do have to have a hazmat 16-hour class. So we do offer that as well. So he's returning back for hazmat, and we were able to get the CDL and work around his work, and it worked out really well. So referrals, that could be business referrals, but I connect with a student. Sometimes they're calling me to help with the jobs. I help them when they're here with jobs. I probably spend, 10-20% of my day sometimes helping connect students with jobs. But then I'll follow up with a student. I make a list of students to follow up with, and maybe I check in with them 2-3 months. Hey, how's it going? Sometimes I say, hey, I need help finding a new job. This isn't working out. Or, hey, I just got fired because I made a rookie mistakes. But in that interaction, sometimes there's an opportunity. Well, hey, do you know anybody? You got any friends that need a CDL? And, send them my way. Or, hey, you got a number, name a number, I'll give them a call. Or I call them, hey, John, I'm glad you called. I was just talking to my buddy. He wants to get a CDL. Here's his name and number. So I get referrals from companies. I get them from former students. Ask who they know, right? Celebrate their progress. So I do have a follow-up list, and it's a paper list. I don't have it in a computer. I just have names, phone numbers, and I put it in my calendar, follow up and check in. Say, hey, man, how's it going? How'd that job work out? I had one I reached out recently. He graduated probably 8 months ago. He's got great experience now. I found a great job for him for his situation, and it was literally doubled his pay. And he was thrilled that I thought of him. Even though he graduated, I didn't forget about him. I knew his story. I knew what he needed. And when the opportunity presented, I go, ooh, I know who I'm going to call. And that word of mouth, when you do that for students, and you follow up or you call them, hey, I got this great job for you, because I remember your story, right? I remembered their story. They never forget that, and they tell everybody about that. They tell at least 10 people. All right, so bottom line, right? Stories create emotion that makes sales. Facts and details are the way we help them justify the purchase. We set follow-up dates, whether it's texts, and I have, when I send a text or an email, I actually have an automatic follow-up date set in the system, so that it prompts me to follow up. And referrals do come from real relationships. That is a relationship I built with the student. And it's hard. I mean, as the slide, when they introduced me, I mean, I've trained and helped get thousands of students literally into a program over the years. And so it's hard to keep track of all the names. I gotta be honest. But my goal is to make him a raving fan of Drive 509. And it really is about trust. It's about relationship, showing that you care. People sense that. If you're just trying to sell them, people know right away. I have someone comes in for a tour, and I could tell they cross their arms, right? They cross their arms, are defensive. You know, the first thing I do is I hand them a study guide. I circle the sections they need to study for the permit, and I hand them a study guide. And now they have to unlock their arms. If they do it again, I hand them a flyer, or I hand them my business card. I get them to lower their defense. And I ask them questions, and slowly but surely I see those hands just keep, and then once they're not doing this, right, crossing their arms, I now know that we're getting somewhere. We're building a relationship. We're getting that trust factor. And at the end of the day, I want the button seat, right? Because we've got to get butts in seat to make money, right? I mean, at the end of the day, but I want to help them get better their lives, and people sense that, and I want to make them a raving fan. And if anybody ever needs a CDL, I want them to think of Drive 509. I want them to think, hey, you got to call my buddy John. And I have students that I don't know. Apparently it's a lifelong commitment now. I was one of them calls me his recruiter, but I think we're more friends, and he's the one I told you about with it just made 7,500. We went out not too long ago. He asked me out for a beer and dinner, and I was going to buy, and he said, "No, your money's never good with me. You changed my whole life." And think of how many people he shared that with. Now, I didn't do it for accolades, but that made him a raving fan, and he is today. And the company he works for, we've just got 3 of our students hired on there, and going to change their lives too. And the fun story about him is he came back to do the recruiting session that got him the 3 drivers. So in just 1 year, he's back doing a recruiting session for his company. And cool story. What's next? All right.
All right, guys. So thank you, John. That's pretty much concluding today's, but I want to get to some questions. I'll read them and I'll let John go ahead and answer them. So the first one is from Beverly. This is going back to the slide where you have your outreach. You wait a week between each attempt, first, second, third. Does that vary? What does your length of time for that outreach look like?
It will depend. Sometimes I'll reach out on a Monday, and maybe I'll do one follow-up on a Friday, but I tend to try to do every Monday. When I come in Monday, I look at CDL Power Suite. I pull up any inbound new leads. I call them, and then I start following up on the people that I had reached out to a week before. So I set different tasks by day, but it will just depend. If I reach out and I don't hear anything, I'll write in my notes, no response. I'll reach out one more time, and then I'll reach out a third time. And I probably within 4 weeks or less, I've archived that lead due to no response. If I actually connect with them via text, email, or phone, that'll dictate when I do the follow-up, because maybe I talk to somebody and they're not going to be able to start till, let's say, July 6th. Okay, so I had talked to a good gentleman yesterday. He's not going to be able to start till July 6th. So he wasn't ready to register. He's going to go get his med card. He's going to start studying for his permit. So I set a follow-up date about 2 weeks out. to make sure I can get him registered, and get him a spot in class, before that class is full. So it really will vary. But when initially I follow up on new leads one week, and then the next Monday I follow up again. That's my best answer to that.
Awesome. So something I wanted to point out with that is that in the email we're going to send everyone after this webinar with the recording, we will also have a document in there as well with a CDL school recruitment structure and information document, so that you guys can utilize in your own businesses. So definitely be on the lookout for that email. The other question here from Elizabeth, I'll read it out. I'm watching from a technical college in East Tennessee. We're seeing a trend where, because we're open enrollment and anyone can apply, there are challenges with follow through. For our course, students must provide proof of their permit and med card prior to being considered for the program. This leaves me calling hundreds of people who say, I'm going to do this next week. Then I call them back and it's the same story until they miss the deadline completely. Just curious how we can promote that follow through.
So run into the same problem. When I first got here, January 2025, people were showing up. They registered, med card, and permit before they could even start. Right. It has seemed to have been a struggle. So we've done a few things. As long as I can get them registered in a med card, I'll let them get their permit the first week of training, and I schedule them to go for their permit test on their third day of training. And we like them to drive on their third day here. So, but sometimes it helps them to be in class, touch it. We do class, and then we go hands-on. Class, hands-on for 3 days. We're back and forth. Learning, application. Now, the other thing is I have some people that need a little help. I've got some funders where, they're required to start. Now, we like them to start with the permit, don't get me wrong, and I encourage that. But if I can get their butt in their seat, I can help them get a permit. Sometimes that ends up in a longer program, but I do offer what's called a free CDL permit prep class. And it's basically the first 3 days of training for free. But they have to be registered as a student, and they have to pay the registration fee. They have to commit before they can even walk in the building. And they basically get 3 days of, maybe a week or two before they're starting. They come in and they get some class, they get some hands-on. We can show them how to study with practice tests. I have a whole email that I send out to people after they've registered for CDL permit prep. And it has a study guide. It has YouTube video links. It has an audiobook link. It has a practice test link that I recommend. When they come in for a tour, I show all this to them on a computer. Once they're registered, they have access to CDL permit prep exam on their student portal with CDL Power Suite. So, and I use all those tricks and tacks, and if I'm helping them, I follow up. I mean, if I give them that information, I definitely set a follow-up within a week. But I do the free permit prep class. I just get their butt in the seat, and we help them get their permit. And sometimes, sometimes they get a permit Tuesday, second day of class, third day of class, fourth day of class, on a rare occasion, on Friday, then we have some drives to make up, and we've decided to do that because if we don't do that, we've lost too many people. Because people, a study guide is written by a technical writer. I have a friend that is a technical writer. He writes all the manuals for like Boeing, to build airplanes. He's never built an airplane. Not uncommon with the CDL. Person that's writing that training manual may not have a CDL, may have never worked on a CDL. So that information, there's good technical information in the study guide, but they need some hands-on. They need to get in the truck. They need to touch it. So that's how we deal with it now. And that's evolved. We've had to do that. Otherwise, we lose too many butts and seats. And that was how we adapted to make sure that we got butts and seats. And we actually have to help. I would say at this point, we're probably helping 60% of our students get to permit their first week of training. And we do warn them that, if they don't progress, they don't study, they could end up with an extra week of training and extra costs. But we do everything we can to get just to help remove that obstacle, because people are having a hard time figuring that out. For whatever reason, it has become a common thing. So we have the same problem that you have.
Awesome. Thank you, John. Elizabeth, I hope that helped answer your question. I know that is super common um, among CDL schools and public and private alike, where people just don't quite commit. So definitely getting them in a seat and helping them with that permit can really move things along. We just got another question from Delbert. How do you handle prospective students calling and telling you that they found a school cheaper? We have 10 schools here in Austin area that use short pup trailers, where only 3 schools, including me, use real world trailers. What I'm seeing is that they care about price and could care less about training in a parking lot or dead end frontage road. They care about price over safety or quality of training.
Okay, so I run into that all the time. Now, I'm fortunate here. I go through them and say, okay, well, any school you're considering, you should come put boots on the ground. You should come here, go check out that school. Let me show you the equipment. So I show them that, hey, you know what? We're going to train you in a 53 footer, a 48 footer. We're going to train you in a single axle semi, double axle semi, a pup. So what I do, and this is because this is what we do. I don't just train them to the test. I make sure they understand that quality of training matters. We're going to train them to be a driver. We're going to train them how to hook and unhook. We're going to teach them how to drive different lengths of equipment. Personally, when I got my CDL, I trained on a semi truck with a 28-foot pup, and I didn't know any better. Okay. They don't know any different. The first time they're 75 feet long is the first day on the job. And when I was worked as a driver trainer for my company, and I trained for 3 terminals, I would cut those people that second day on the job. I mean, we were going to commit to 4 weeks on the job training after they got their CDL. They'd never driven a long box, and it's the first thing I made them go do. So you could use that angle, because I want to make sure they understand, hey, we're going to teach you how to drive a pup, but we're going to teach you how to drive a 53. First time you're 75 feet long, it's going to be here in class. Quality of instruction matters. And I said, and it also means that we have a better reputation. And companies like to come here and recruit. We have companies that come in to recruit Tuesday and Wednesdays from 3:30 to 4. We have one company a day per the week, and I have one coming in today. Because quality of instruction matters. And I tell people this: we are not the cheapest. We are not the most expensive. We are the best at what we do, and quality of instruction matters. And then I give them testimonials. I'll tell them a story. I try to get them down here to show them what kind of equipment they're going to use, how many instructors we have. You gotta give them the visual, because they don't know, and they're just looking at price. And I say, oh, and then I've had people where they say, yeah, well, the only thing that matters to me to price is price. I say, okay, well, then we have a couple of grants that maybe we qualify, maybe we get in the ballpark or get competitive with that other school with the grant. But at the end of the day, sometimes I say, okay, well, if quality of instruction doesn't matter, and all that matters to you is price, and great, then I guess you need to go there. Are they going to help you get a job? We have companies that come here to recruit. I will help you with resumes. I will connect you with companies. So I've given myself we as a school have given ourselves some advantages. And I have built some new relationships since I've been here, trying to make it so that I can offer things other schools aren't doing. And that's that personal touch where I have a student that graduates, and then, a year and a half later, he needs a new job, or he lost a job. He's calling me for help, man. Most schools won't do that, right? So that gives us a competitive edge. So I would say quality of instruction type of equipment matters, and you need to find an opportunity to say that. And I do tell people we're not the cheapest, and if all you care about is fast track training and you just want to be trained to a test, and you don't actually want to learn how to be a safe driver and how to drive proper lengths of equipment, then great. Then you need to go somewhere else, and good luck with that. And I tell them that, if you would come to me from that school, I would have probably let you go your second day of training on the job, because you've never driven a long box before. And that's a fact. That's what I did. Because if my company was going to do 4 weeks on the job training, that's $10,000-$12,000 of my time. So if they didn't get properly trained, I cut them. And I tell that story a lot, and it's true. And it's a true story too. So Um, so that's what I do. Hopefully that helps you.
Awesome, John. Thank you so much. Yeah, no, that is super common. As an observer, watching John do his thing over the last year or so, time all kind of melds together. But um, the tours that I see John take these prospective students on, and those stories that he's been telling throughout this entire webinar, really you see it in the prospective students' faces and their decision making. Get them in front of you. I I think that is so important, and I just see it work. So being able to get in front of you and have them hear those, it's not just an email, it's not just a text message, not just an ad on Facebook. It is actual real life. So that's definitely something. Elena, I hope that answered your question as well, because it was when other schools in the area are cheaper than your program, how can you change their mind on that? So I think that's about the same question, but we are happy to answer any questions after this webinar via email. Um, and definitely, like I said, take a look at the sheet we're going to send out, and we can definitely also show you um, some of what CDL Power Suite, the team here at CDL Power Suite, can do to assist with leads and student tracking, both for their student and once they are successfully in school. So, if there's no more questions, and I'll yeah, feel free to think about any last questions, and I'll let John kind of wrap us up here.
Okay. One thing I do is, and this happens a lot, they've called two other schools, then they call me, and I give them more information than the other schools are willing to do. Um, I've had people where I've sent them my CDL permit prep email, even though they're not registered. And I tell them, I only give it, but I'm going to give it to you so you can get the right information. And then the other thing I said, okay, listen, any school you're considering, put boots on the ground. I don't care if it's me and other, just go to all three. But make sure you know what questions to ask. And so I give them the questions to ask, like, how much equipment do you have? Am I going to be trained on manual or automatic? How many instructors do you have? Do you do schedule accommodations? What length of trailers am I driving? You know, um, do you have job placement services? Do they have recruiters coming into school to hire? I load them up with, like, these are the questions you should ask everybody. I said, and I tell them my story of when I got my CDL, I didn't know. And I had a terrible experience, terrible instructor. I went to the wrong school. I didn't know to go visit the site. I lost a lot of time, money, and lost income. And I had a horrible experience because I didn't put boots on the ground. And I tell people that story. I make sure they understand the worst mistake you can make is just go to a school, no, put boots on the ground. Come here, go there, compare. And I give them questions and I give them more information than most schools will give them. And when they come back, they say, I went to this other school, it's cheaper, but they don't have as much equipment. They wouldn't give me the information you gave me. And the other thing is I stir up emotion. And I love what Johnny said. When I get them here, I tell stories. I get the emotion going. I show them what we can do. I show them success stories. I really make a point to connect and give them a tour, answer all their questions, show them what we do. And that personal touch usually sways it. They usually come back, to be honest. If they come here for a tour and I give them a tour and I give them that one-on-one, if they get their CDL, I would say probably 8 out of 10 people that come in for a tour come back to us. And that's that personal touch. If we could just get them in the building, get some one-on-one with them, give them a free study guide. Means it. A lot of people are just sales. They're just moving sales. And people pick up on that, that we're actually trying to help them make sure they make the right choice.
Yeah. So Delbert asked if we could get those questions about that they should be asking other schools to get the right information. So we'll write that up for you guys. I think that's a great takeaway. Maybe something we didn't think about going into this. So I'm super glad that came up. Unless there's anything else, I think we're right at 1 hour. So that was seems to be perfect timing. And we really appreciate everyone for joining. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any direct questions for John. Definitely reach out to CDL Power Suite, and we will get his answers and bring those questions to him directly. So we're happy to help however we can, and we hope everyone has a great rest of your day and safe training out there. Thank you so much.